7:01, I'm going to call this meeting to order.
Would you please?
Yes, so I'm calling the meeting to order. I don't have a gavel. Here's my pretend gavel. And we did not have a closed session. There was one noticed on the agenda, but we did not have any matters. So we're starting the meeting now with no closed agenda in the beginning. ¿Hay alguien que necesita interpreta para la junta? And Lucy will have to let us know if anybody needs an interpreter. This
No,
meeting-
as of,
Go ahead.
sorry, no interpreter needed as of now.
Great, thank you. This meeting is being recorded or broadcasted. Images and sounds may be captured of those attending the meeting. As a reminder for those members participating in the meeting, please mute your speakers until it's time to speak. That'll keep it a lot easier for us to hear whoever's talking at the time. As a reminder for those board members participating in the meeting, please mute your speakers until it's time to speak. And we're going to begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'm going to ask Mr. Pace to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance because he has a bow tie.
Please stand. Ready, salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Pace.
Thank you.
For board members making motions, to keep it easy on our scribe, please announce your name when you make a motion. So if I was going to make a motion, Mark Good, I moved for whatever, and same thing for second. That would be great. Next is approval of the agenda, and I have a statement I'd like to read before we approve the agenda. I'd like to point out that action item 7A was added to the agenda today, and because of this late agenda, it needs special approval from the board. This item is a resolution for authorization of the superintendent to take necessary actions to prepare and respond effectively to the novel coronavirus COVID-19. The Brown Act permits the board to make a late addition like this if the board finds that an emergency situation exists or if there is a need to take immediate action and the need for action came to the attention of the district subsequent to the agenda being posted. While only a majority of the board needs to determine that an emergency exists, the motion to add the item is based on a need that arose subsequent to the agenda being posted and therefore must be approved by a 2/3 vote of the board or by unanimous vote if less than 2/3 of the board is present. First, as to the emergency situation. Based on the unprecedented declaration of a state of emergency by our local governments and by the governor of California, pursuant to which all Californians have been asked to shelter in place for the next month, there's little doubt that an emergency situation exists. Second, as to the need for immediate action, the resolution allows for the superintendent to take a variety of actions, including determining the length of time our school sites will be closed during the 2019-2020 school year, the ability to determine what qualifies as an essential government function for purposes of continuity of certain construction projects, and the authority to direct staff to serve as a disaster service workers pursuant to Government Code Section 3100. There is a need for the superintendent to take immediate action so that the district can immediately address the COVID-19 pandemic and recent orders, such as the updated Santa Clara County shelter-in-place order issued on March 31st. The ever-changing COVID-19 crisis and recent orders issued at the county, state, and federal level, which change sometimes on a daily basis related to COVID-19, require that the board act immediately. Third, the agenda was legally required to be posted no later than Monday, March 30th. The need for action on a number of items came to the attention of the district based on updated information regarding COVID-19 and an updated order from the Santa Clara County on March 31st. Accordingly, I am making a motion, Mark Good is making a motion, that pursuant to Government Code Section 54954.2 subsection B, that that the board approve the addition of action item 7A based on the board's finding that an emergency situation exists and there is a need to take immediate action on items that came to the district's attention after the agenda was posted. Will someone second that motion?
PC, I second it.
Thank you. All those in favor, and this is a roll call?
Enrique Diaz,
Yes.
BC Doyle,
Yes.
Gwen Fioc,
Yes.
Mark Good,
Yes.
Anisha Munchi,
Yes.
James Pace,
Yes.
Linda Paceno.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
PC, I so move.
I second.
All those in favor, and this is a roll call vote?
Enrique Diaz,
Yes.
BC Doyle,
Yes.
Gwen Fioc,
Yes.
Mark Good,
Yes.
Anisha Munchi,
Yes.
James Pace,
Yes.
Linda Paceno.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have item 3C, general public comment. Do we have any public comment?
We do not have any public comment.
Very good. We will now move on to item D, report of action taken in closed session. There was no closed session, therefore no action was taken. Moving on, item number 4, superintendent's report. Dr. Flores.
Thank you, Mr. Good, and thank you, the board, for approving that, adding the resolution to the agenda. I think it's essential, and I'll be talking about it in a little bit, but a lot of my report is about the impact of COVID-19 on our district. It's really remarkable. We did this little timeline, and it's remarkable when you think about it that really things started happening just a little over 2 weeks ago. On March 13th, we voted at the whole Bay Area decided to close schools until April 6th. And for us, that was April 13th because of spring break. And that's the first school closure of that type that I've ever heard of, where an entire region and other parts of the state closed schools because of a pandemic. And then just a few days, and that was on a Friday. And we literally had to tell all of our staff and our students, take everything out of your classroom you think you're going to need. And then next thing you know, the schools are closed. By Monday morning, which I think is just remarkable, we opened food service programs, meals programs on Monday morning at 7 school sites. It was 72 hours after the schools closed. And although that first day, the participation was very low, I think we had less than 400 at the 7 sites. Within just a few days, we had 1,700 students and families show up for food, I think by Thursday of that week. And now we're serving, roughly 1,500 a day. We have a lot of families that are taking advantage of our meals program. Very quickly, we moved from in-face meetings to WebEx meetings like this one. I think I've had like 30 in 2 weeks. It's incredible how we've moved so quickly to having home offices and doing a tremendous amount of work. In fact, in a lot of ways, I feel like we're working harder than we've ever worked because it's so challenging to run a school district remotely. It's there, as you can imagine, there's so many challenges to that. Starting that first week, Dr. Dewan, who has demonstrated just incredible leadership during all of this, initiated twice a week meetings with superintendents. And so every Tuesday, Friday afternoon at 2, all the superintendents in the county, I mean, all of us are on these WebEx meetings or Zoom meetings in that case. And they're often 1.5 to 2 hour meetings. We have so much to discuss as a county to make sure we're all in sync with each other, to help brainstorm issues and just, do a lot of things that we need to get done. Our current major issue that we're working on is grading, and that's for another day, but just to give you an idea. That first week, we decided that our nurses should do a health check on our food service people every morning. That's 40 people at 7 sites. And very quickly, by Wednesday morning, Our nurses were out there with their thermometers and their little health check form that they ask each employee every morning, and they were checking our employees' health before they started serving food, and they've continued to do that ever since. Then on March 25th, the school closure was extended to May 1st, which was another, major. To me, these are like in phases. That first phase was for a few weeks up to spring break. The second phase took us to May 1st, Friday, and then we would have reopened that following Monday. And also, starting that very first Friday, I started a weekly letter to parents and staff. And I want to commend Melanie Corona, our PIO. Basically, she and I talk on the phone. We talk about what I want covered, what topics. She brings some topics to the table. And by Friday every week, she's developed a great, I think, communication to everyone, trying to keep people informed of what's happening in the district. And again, that's a new communication strategy. And then what caused the emergency resolution this evening was really, we had a heads up from Dr. Dewan that there might be an extension of the school closure through the end of the year. And next thing you know, I'm watching the governor's press conference the following day. And not only does he announce that schools will be closed, this is on Tuesday, the 31st, that schools will be closed to the end of the year, but Tony Thurmond then came on and said the same thing. And Linda Darling-Hammond, state board president, reinforced what both of them had said. I think it caught us all a little bit off guard. We knew this was under discussion. We knew it would probably happen. Didn't expect it the day after we had kind of a heads up. So we adjusted again. It's not to say that we don't agree with this. We actually do, because as you look at the public health department dashboard every day, I don't know if you are using that dashboard. It's excellent. It's one of the best I've seen, and I've been checking regularly other counties. It's an excellent dashboard. And if you look at the dashboard, we haven't even reached our peak, and it'll probably be, as Dr. Cody says, 3 or 4 weeks at least. So there's no way we could have safely brought children and staff back to school in May. It just doesn't seem like it can happen. So our new normal is to be incredibly flexible and adaptable and to adjust. And everyone in this organization is doing a great job. The best job we can do. Is it perfect? No. Can it be better? Yes. And we're working on that every day. But I'm really proud of the job that our entire staff is doing. Teachers have had to literally overnight move from face-to-face instruction and interaction with their students in the classroom to coming up with creative ways to provide an instructional program, through WebEx, through Google Classroom, through a lot of different mediums, and they're doing a great job. All of our staff are doing a great job. And probably one of the best examples of that was Tuesday. Let me talk about the phases of instruction, because I think this is really important. The first few weeks when we thought we were coming back after spring break, we decided that we would provide essentially supplementary education for those first 2 or 3 weeks. And we did that both online and through hard copy packets that were distributed at the meals sites. So we made thousands of copies of packets of instructional materials for families, and they took them. In fact, the first few days they were gone and we had to make more. So for those first few weeks, we were really focused on how do we supplement their education, thinking that we were all going to come back after the spring break. Once we moved into phase 2, we had to develop more long-term plans for instructional programs. And now we've moved to a distance learning model, which will be primarily delivered online, which requires computers. And we know we have a digital divide in our district. We have an achievement gap, and it's critical that during these phases, from now till the end of the school year, that we be able to deliver instruction to all of our families. And a critical piece of that is putting computers and the internet in their hands. So we did a survey. Ed Services took the lead on this, surveyed all of our families. We had 4,000 responses, which I think is great out of about 7,800 families. And we have 11,000 students, but many of those families are from the children are from the same family. So our goal was to get computers in the hands of all of our students so that when we launch the distance learning after spring break, they will be able to take advantage of it. So on Tuesday, and this was launched essentially by our IT staff, Maribel, Jose, and our Ed Services staff, we scheduled 600 families to pick one person per family to come and pick up a computer. Only 375 showed up on Tuesday. There are a lot of reasons we think that happened. In fact, we've had lots of emails sent about people didn't really understand, So tomorrow we've scheduled 1,000 families to show up and pick up computers. This is happening at Gilroy High. And by the way, we've given incredible attention to doing this as safely as possible. I mean, people are not just 6 feet apart, they're 10 feet apart. There are stations, there are places they have to stop. Officer Holler was out there Tuesday. Our new officer, Odell, will be there tomorrow, along with Aurelio Rodriguez, our safety coordinator. And they're ensuring that families stop where they're supposed to maintain safe distances of 10 feet. And we're using 4 stations only in the student center. So there's one individual at a time goes into the 4 stations. They're in the different corners of the student center. I don't need to go into all the details, but I just want to assure you that we are taking every possible precaution to make sure it's done as safely as possible. But the goal is to eventually distribute about 4,000 computers. We're probably going to do 2 days next week, but at different hours, because what we're hearing from some families is they simply can't come between 8 and 5. They need to come later in the day. So we're looking at possibly evening distributions to try to meet the need of different schedules from many of our families. So as you can see, I haven't covered everything on my notes because I could go on and on, but we are on spring break next week. And despite that, we will be still serving thousands of meals at 3 sites because we needed volunteers to do that next week. It is spring break. We'll still be distributing some instructional materials with the goal, again, after the break, of moving mostly to an online platform. And then we are going to try to distribute some more computers next week. So even though it's spring break, we will not be completely down. And then I wanted to mention one other part of the resolution in these opening comments is about construction. The order on Tuesday caused me to gasp because one of the points was all commercial and residential construction would halt. And I just, I was like, oh, please don't let this apply to our Brownell project and our pool project. And after we did a lot of research that afternoon, thankfully, it does not apply to public school construction projects. However, we do have to beef up the procedures related to following the social distancing guidelines. Not that they weren't already doing that, because I'd already immediately after all this started communicated through Paul to the contractors that we expected them to provide in writing to us their assurances they were following all of the guidelines, which they did. That was several weeks ago, by the way. But the new guidelines require some additional steps, like a meeting with all of the people working on the project by the contractor. He may have already done that. He's really, our Flint construction is so sharp, and so are our pool people, so they've probably already done that. But there have to be posters now around the construction site emphasizing the social distancing requirements. And that's one of the things we included in the resolution that I'll highlight later, but we're very pleased that the project can continue. It would have cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars to even put the project on hold a month. And that would have been a tragedy, not just for the district and the project, but for taxpayers. So we are really pleased that we're able to continue both our projects without any delays. And we are being told that both projects can escalate and be done quicker because there's no students or staff there. It gives them a lot more latitude as far as what they can do in the project. So we're really excited. And lastly, this is costing us a lot of money that we didn't have budgeted. So to our great relief, we are receiving $186,000 it's based on ADA. This is not competitive. It's a distribution of funds from the state. And we're also going to apply for some FEMA funds, but that $186,000 will help a lot with some of our additional costs related to all of this. So for now, that concludes my report. I'll probably say a few more things when we get to the resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Flores, and thank you for all your difficult work. And we're lucky we have such wonderful employees here. It's all difficult and it's challenging for everybody.
Yes. Thanks.
You're welcome. Thanks. Next for the item number 5, we have the consent agenda. Now I have the consent agenda just has one item, the minutes, and I have a change to the minutes. Right at the top says attendance taken, and it says the following board members participated and voted by telephone conference. Myself, Trustee Fiak were actually physically present. Everyone else was by teleconference. So with that change, amending the minutes, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Move to approve the agenda and the minutes.
This is BC, second.
A motion by Trustee Diaz, second by BC Doyle. All is in favor. This is a roll call vote.
Yes.
Yes.
BC Doyle,
Yes.
Quinn Fiak,
Yes.
Mark Good,
Yes.
Anisha Munchi,
Yes.
James Pace,
Yes.
Linda Paceno.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have item number 6, public hearing on redistricting the Gilroy Unified School District, the process and how to participate. This is an information item, which will be presented to us by Mr. Meza.
Thank you, President Good. Good evening, Dr. Flores. Good evening, Governing Board. As you know, this is the second public hearing which we're holding. The first one we held on March 19th that really kicked off this long process that we're going to embark on, from at-large board member elections to by trustee area elections, with the goal of impacting, as the board wishes, the November 2020 election. With us tonight is Douglas Johnson from our National Demographics Corporation consultant company. We've done a lot of work over the last couple of weeks. And so my hope today is that we show you a couple of tools that are out there for the public to be able to look at possible scenarios and tools available to the public, really with a range of possibilities. One being a hard copy paper of how to draw essentially a map, if you will, to all the way to a software-based, more complicated, a little bit more complex option, but also gives you a little bit more flexibility. So tonight we have Douglas Johnson, and he'll walk you through what we've posted on our website, giving everybody a kind of overview of the tools that they can use to participate in this very important and very public process of transitioning from at-large board member elections to by trustee elections, with, again, the goal of impacting November 2020 elections. Mr. Douglas, do you want to walk us through what's on the website and how the public can participate in this important process, please?
Sure, happy to, and it's a pleasure to be back with you again. I hadn't known how to put all the different faces on the screen before, so this is new for me, and it's very useful. It's very handy. So kudos to your staff for figuring all this out. I'm going to try to share my screen. I think Maribel may have to do that. Not sure how to do that. I've got the share button that's grayed out, unfortunately. But let's see.
Perhaps Jose or Maribel can chime in on permissions for.
I'm gonna text Maribel.
Yeah, if the items you're going to show us have been posted on agenda online, then we would be able to refer. We should be able to refer to that if you tell us what what part you're discussing.
Sure. And actually, they're on the district website. It'll be nice if I can show them live and show kind of how to use them, but I can certainly walk you through them just from the district website. And your team really has built a great website. If people go to the Board of Education page, which is right in the top menu bar, one of the submenus is Board of Education redistricting process. Really, everything they need to know is on this page.
And I have that open now. It works pretty well.
Yeah, perfect. And the one thing that is on the agenda from today is the presentation. And it's the same presentation we gave at the last meeting. By state law, we have to have 2 hearings on the same topic of information. So people who want to go back and see all those details can go back through that. But in particular, on this page, and now is there's the introduction text. And then if you click on the draw map page, here are the tools that were just mentioned that are great tools for people to be able to draw maps themselves. One of the interesting parts of this, it's a little challenging, but it gives people the opportunity not just to come in and say, yes, I like this map, or no, I like that map. They can actually draw their own maps. And as demographic consultants, we actually love that. It's actually our goal to see if we can encourage residents to get involved and draw the maps and ultimately have a map that's a resident draw map adopted. Sometimes it's tough, but
Douglas, can I stop you a second? Maribel is saying to check your phone, and she's sending you a message about how to do it.
oh, okay.
And if not, we'll just have to go on the way we are.
Okay. I don't have a message yet, but I'll keep it live there.
Okay.
Or if I may, perhaps Douglas can narrate where Maribel can take control of it, and she can then show the website, and Douglas can say what to click and etc.
Okay.
That makes most sense.
I'm putting myself on mute and I'll call her, so keep going.
Okay. Yeah, and there are 3 different ways that people can draw maps. And number one, I want to emphasize these tools are to empower people. They don't have to use these tools. If someone just wants to sketch a map on a piece of paper or a map they have around the house, we love that. But these tools enable people to actually calculate the population numbers. So our goals are, number one, any map has to have an equal number of people in each trustee area, in each of the 7 trustee areas. And we cannot divide up any neighborhood that is heavily what the law calls a protected class. So Asian American, Latino, or African American, in a way that dilutes that neighborhood's voting strength. And that's the voting rights requirements. And after that, it really comes down to knowing your neighborhoods and which neighborhoods make the most sense to put together. Or in the case of, as you've discussed at the last hearing, trying to make sure that each attendance zone has multiple board members that represent that attendance zone. So it's not just one board member equals one school. We want people to still feel an obligation and an accountability to the whole district. So on that page, the first section anyone looking at it will see is the paper-only maps. These are really easy to use tools. There's this English and a Spanish version. It's just a straightforward 2-page PDF where each little area has the number of people. And as you'll see on the first page, you have to get as close to 8,268 people per area as you can. And people just assign those areas up. There are street names on the detail version and send those in. One thing we found, we used to have elaborate ways for mailing them in and faxing them in. And then some resident in a jurisdiction took a picture with their phone and just emailed in the picture. We said, perfect. So it's really easy to send them in now. That doesn't give you breakdowns in terms of ethnicity and those kinds of things. It's a really, really simple thing. You don't have to have any computer skills other than how to print to use that form. If someone wants to get a little more sophisticated, they can scroll down to the Microsoft Excel supplement, which is the next section. And there's an Excel file. I always say no one should try to learn Excel just for this project. It's not worth it. But more and more people are familiar with Excel, including more and more of your high school students. And that will give them their demographics. They print out a PDF map. It has those little areas numbered. And then they simply assign them in the Excel form, and it will tell them the demographics of each district or each trustee area as they draw it. So that gives you the ability to see the Latino percentages, Asian American percentages, those kinds of things as you work with it. Lastly, for those that really want to dive in detail, there's at the bottom of that page is the online districting tool. And this is, and with perfect timing, there is share my screen. So kudos to Maribel for this. Screen, let me see if I can get this to go. There we go. Let me get to the right page. So if you click on this online districting tool link, it takes you to a login. And your first time you have to create a user ID, but that's really easy. You just enter your username and a password. And so it takes you right back here. You log in. Oops, if I do it correctly. And the first time you come in, there won't be any plans here. So I've been working with this already, so there's one there. But click new plan, and it says template. And also, if any other residents have drawn maps and shared those with the community, all those maps that other people have drawn will be here. You can use those as a template. I'll just give it you have to give it a name, because obviously you're not allowed to change someone else's map. You're making a copy and print it yourself. And then it opens up on screen. And what we get is a handful of tools. A little bit because my WebEx is in the way. And the only thing you really have to remember from this is the tips button. If you come up to tips, it will then walk you through the screen. So you don't have to remember everything I'm going to show you. This will just walk through. Here's your how you pick your areas that I'll show you in a moment. And it will walk you through each part of the screen as you go through the tips. I'm going to do that, so I'll skip through that. The other thing to know of is this pull down for language. So right off the bat, people can pick whatever language they want all these screen commands to be in. But really, what you have up here in the top left, your kind of usual zoom in, zoom out, and pan buttons. So I will this another way. There we go. So as you zoom in and zoom out, it will give you the details. And for some reason, it's not letting me because the WebEx controls are conflicting with the screen controls. But once you get into the area you want to deal with, you then use these buttons to choose what you want to assign. So as I draw an area, let me see. Oh, the tool doesn't like WebEx. My apologies for that. But you choose a district, for example, new district, and then you use these tools to draw a shape, and it will let you choose that area. The key thing to watch is this changes button. It tells you your deviation, how many people you put in or out, and so it will give you a nice count as you add city blocks to your map. You walk through that until you have all your districts balanced. And down here at districts, it'll give you the data for each of your districts. And then when you're done, simply go up here to plan integrity, and I'll shift over a map and show you how those work. And then people can share it, as I mentioned, with other people, and they can submit their plan. Let me switch to a map here. I'm going to switch over to my demo 1 to show you when you get done. Oh, I almost forgot. You have different options for coloring. District ID is obvious. It colors each district in. You can also see those demographics. So if you want to see where Latinos are, it'll highlight with the red is the most Latino, purple is least. You can also do percent college graduates and income levels. You can see where the different income levels are. So lots of data is available to folks as they go through the process. And when you're done, you come up here and you do find assigned unassigned areas. This will give you a little check. In this map, I've got lots of little areas, and it will let you zoom in on each one and fix it and assign it to a different area. So this belongs in District 1 next to it. I click on there, click on that. Once I've clicked it, it highlights, and I click check to say, yes, I do want to move that area. And now it's assigned. That's handy. You can also say the other piece you need to do is check on non-contiguous districts. And this is showing me that I have a place. Oh, now I've got my controls. Oops. I got a place where there's a floater. This little block is assigned to 7, but it should be in 4. I choose 4, click on it. And the numbers that show up when you zoom way in are the population numbers. You can see those. So this case, I'm fixing it, not moving anyone. So it does take, and now we've got no non-contiguous areas. So it takes a little bit of work to kind of figure it out. Again, use those tips. They're very handy. That you're not going to remember every command and all that. So the tips will walk you through in about 2 minutes with what you want to see. And the key part is when you're done, say submit a plan, it asks you for your name and information. But the main thing we want is your explanation. Because what happens is people will spend an hour or 2 hours or 6 hours getting their neighborhood just right. They'll really pay a lot of attention to it. And then they'll just kind of fill in the other 6 districts. They'll just get in the population numbers and not worry about it. And somebody across town will look at that map and say, are you crazy? This makes no sense. And if you've described it here as saying, I really focused on my neighborhood, which is this area, then the people across town know, oh, well, they can keep that area and just play with the rest of the map, and the 2 maps can go together well. And the odds that any one person's map, be it a resident or me as your consultant, will be the final map are low. What usually happens is we end up with a mashup of maps. You get a lot of maps in, 5, 10, and take the best parts of each one. So the descriptions really help know what does the resident think is the best parts or most important parts of their maps. And then they send it in, and whatever way people send in their map, be it scribbling on a piece of paper, using the printout kit, or using the online tool, we will process them all the same. They will all look just as professional and have all the same demographic data when they come to the board and go out to the public. And they will go out to the public. It's worth noting, there will be a new section on this page once there's draft maps that are all the draft maps. And they'll go out a week before the next hearing. So as we look at the timeline on this page, you can see the deadline is April 16th because we have to process those maps and have them published a week before April 23rd. And so people have a lot of time to review them, comment on them. And those that don't want to get down in those weeds, people that don't want to draw their own maps, there's one other piece of this page they should be aware of. This interactive map link. Right now, it just has the basic outlines. There's an instruction page that pops up. It has the outline of the district and it has the outline of each of those blocks from the paper sheet. Eventually, all the draft maps will be listed here. And people can zoom in. They can enter an address up here in the top left, and it'll zoom in on them. And one thing a lot of people miss that we think is great, the base map is just streets. But you can change your base map. If you click on the base map gallery, you can get satellite images. If people want to see exactly where is that school, the satellite images are great for that. They can also do open streets. Open streets tries to identify every business and government building and label it. So as people zoom in, they'll say, oh, the border is 2nd Street right next to the hairdresser and Lee's barber shop. You know, they can really, it gives them a very concrete sense more than this abstract map would give them of what's where. So there's lots of options, and you don't need to log in for this. All you need to do is go to the district's website and click on that link for interactive map, and all the maps will come here. And so they don't have to, there's nothing complex about this part. It's just like Google Maps, except you have this base map gallery option. So sorry about the zoom in, zoom out. I actually have not tried to do this over WebEx before, but it does, it's working pretty well. But hopefully it gives you a sense of the online mapping tool has a lot of power. You can really draw maps city block by city block. But it does take spending 20 minutes or 30 minutes to figure out how it works. What we find is about half the people get frustrated and they go back to the paper or the Excel map. And the other half get over that hump and end up submitting 2, 3, or 4, even 5 maps each. Once you figure it out, it really is a fun tool to use. So I will pause at this point. As I mentioned, on the timeline-wise, we're looking at asking everyone to submit these initial maps by April 16th so that we can get them processed for the April 23rd map. If later maps do come in, we will still process them, but the board won't be able to look at them until the May 7th meeting. So it is really worthwhile to get the maps in early. And other than that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Are there any questions from the board?
I had a question.
Mr. Diaz, is that Mr. Diaz?
Yes.
Go ahead, Mr. Diaz.
Sorry about that. I'll identify myself the next time as well. Thank you for the presentation, Mr. Johnson. One of the questions I had is once somebody submits a map layout, for example, is there a way that people, well, I think they can see it, but can they also like vote on it or nominate it or to kind of bubble up somehow? Is that something that's possible?
It's a good point. So once we process the map and get a nice PDF and get it all the demographics run, that will go on the district website. And so then everyone can see it. If people want to share it with other people right away, in addition to submitting it, they just click on the share plan option. That will immediately post it. There's also a way, if they're working with some other folks, to email it over even before they submit it.
Thank you.
But unfortunately, there's no way for people to vote on it or anything like that. It really is like any other item. We want them to email in their comments so that the board can weigh in the specific comments, not just a yes, no.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other board comments or questions on this item?
This is Linda. I have a question.
Go ahead, Linda.
Thank you, Mark. Is it appropriate or even is it frowned upon for us as board members that we would I'm really intrigued with this map tool and it looks kind of cool. I would like to kind of play around with it. And I don't know if I even want to submit something, but is that something that's even appropriate for a board member to do?
You actually hit on exactly what I was going to say, which is certainly appropriate to play around with it, to look at possibilities and scenarios. We do have board members and city council members that submit maps. It does, and that's certainly acceptable, it does tend to complicate the discussion a bit, but 100% look at the options, look at scenarios, take a look at it. One thing you can do as well is that if you're playing around with it and you see kind of a map that you like, but it doesn't show up in your agenda, you can certainly give feedback at that first meeting saying, hey, I don't see a map that does this. And we, as the people you're directing, will do that. So you do have the right to submit it, but we do encourage you to try it out and look at options, but maybe think twice before posting.
Thank you.
Are there any other board comments or questions? Hearing none, this is a public hearing. Lucy, do we have any public comments on this item?
We do not have any public comments on this item as of now.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, in that case, we will now close the public hearing on this item. Thank you, Mr. Johnson and Mr. Mesa, for your presentation.
Thank you.
Next, we have item 7A. This is the new one we just added. Authorization of superintendent to take necessary actions to prepare and respond effectively to the novel coronavirus COVID-19. Dr. Flores.
Thank you, Mark. Before I do that, we did have a public comment come in on earlier an item, and it came from GTA President Lindsay Hack. I'd like to read it into the record. It's not on this item. So she says, on behalf of GTA, I'd like to acknowledge the hard work and constant communication the district has had with its bargaining units. During this very stressful time, the collaboration has been incredible, and we are grateful for the teamwork. We are looking forward to continuing working through the ups and downs of this crisis together. Thank you, Lindsay. We really appreciate that comment. And so on to 7A, which was the item that we asked you to add this evening, which is authorization of superintendent to take necessary actions to prepare and respond effectively to the novel coronavirus COVID-19. And as I said during my superintendent's report, we have never faced anything like this. We are in definitely a crisis. And every single day, it feels like something new pops up that we have to deal with. As you probably know, today on the dashboard, there are over 1,000 cases in Santa Clara County. I believe 36 people have died, and I believe that's an increase from over 60 from yesterday. So our cases continue to grow. We are the epicenter of the crisis in the Bay Area. The California and the federal government are taking numerous steps to address COVID-19 as we are as a district, and the impacts of the pandemic are far-reaching and require strong actions, sometimes, on a daily basis from the state, the county, and the district. The closures of schools is probably the most significant from our viewpoint. Sheltering in place, of course, is a very big deal, and on Tuesday, those shelter-in-place requirements increased, but probably the biggest impact for us, of course, is the closure of schools. And so we worked on this resolution with legal counsel since yesterday. What's today? Thursday, Tuesday, when the shelter-in-place guidelines came out, and since the governor announced, as well as the SPI announced, the closure of schools through the end of the school year. I don't know if you want me to read it into the record, Mr. Good. It's a very long resolution. Oh, you're muted.
I don't think it's necessary to read it into the record. It's quite lengthy.
Very
We've
lengthy.
The substance of it.
Yeah, it covers a lot of the things that I talked about in my report. Distance learning, the public school construction side of this. The only thing I didn't mention in my earlier comments that is covered in this, and I wanted to mention, is that also that came up on Tuesday in our superintendent's meeting, was the possibility of both an ed code and a government code being enacted that deals with disaster service workers. And every employee in a public school district or a city or a county agency are considered disaster service workers. And so we added some language in here. I'll be sending a letter out in the morning to all employees in our district, letting them know, reminding them that they've signed an oath when we hired them, that they are disaster service workers when the governor decides to call a state of emergency, and they can be called to complete numerous tasks, whatever is determined by the county that those employees need to do. Of course, if the governor or our county administrator decided that they needed disaster service workers, there are 31 districts in our county and the County Office of Education, along with many other public agencies that have public employees. So they would work closely with superintendents. They would describe the need. The way I understand it, the need would be determined. Let's say the cases just skyrocket and they need additional employees to help with whatever. they would determine the need, and then they'd go to the CEOs of every agency, in our case, it'd be me, and describe their need and tell us they need X number of employees to fill that need. So every one of us, including cabinet, myself, are disaster service workers. In the morning, I'll be sending a letter to all employees, along with information they read when they were hired, like a brochure about what is a disaster service worker. So that was included in this resolution, along with a number of other things. If you look at page 2 at the list, 2A through I list a lot of the actions or steps that we need to take to deal with this crisis in our school district. Basically, the resolution gives me the authority on a minute-by-minute basis right now to address whatever comes to our attention, whatever we need to do to keep this large organization functioning and providing essential services to our students. While school is no longer physically in session, it will still be in session through the distance learning platform. And meals, of course, is another big part of this, continuing to serve meals and provide instructional materials and computers. So we try to cover everything that we could think of right now, so that, you know, we wanted you to know and the public to know what those steps are that we're taking, or what we need to do, and to give me some authority as things come up to act immediately without, you know, bringing resolutions to the board every board meeting.
Well, it makes sense given these troubling times we're in.
Yes.
Are there any board questions or comments on this item?
This is Linda. I have a couple of questions,
Sure.
comments. I think it's very appropriate because in these times we are going to have to move fast, and that waiting for a board meeting to get our approval on an action won't be feasible. So I think it's absolutely appropriate. I want us all to remember, however, that this resolution also says that it takes formal board action to repeal this. So someday we will be through this and we will need to take action to repeal it as well. And I trust that all of us will be kept in the loop.
Absolutely.
You've always been very good about maintaining communication and sending out information to us. So I have no doubt that you and your staff will continue that.
Absolutely. I'm trying to tell you everything I can, but not overwhelm you every day with information. As you know, I try to put most of it in a Sunday report, but if it's urgent, like Tuesday when the governor and Tony Thurmond announced schools were closed, I thought you needed to know that immediately.
I really appreciate the communication, Dr. Flores. I really do.
Thank you.
I'd like to add something. This is Enrique.
Go ahead, Mr. Diaz.
Yeah, I just want to, just for the benefit of the public that's watching, and today we have an amazing count online, but just to know that it isn't unusual, and especially this last year, it's pretty amazing to just have one major situation such as this one, alone the festival shooting that happened last summer, and then the PG&E power outages that happened also during the fall, and now this that's kind of takes us from a local issue to a regional issue to a national and global issue at that. I have no doubt about you and the cabinet decision-making skills and making decisions that are in the best interest of the students and staff. So I fully support this.
Thank you. We were talking about that yesterday, Melanie and I. We could add a few things to your list, by the way. We've had a roller coaster of a year, starting with the Garlic Festival shootings and just some really big issues that we've had to deal with this year, but this eclipses everything. So thank you for those comments.
Are there any other board questions or comments on this item? Hearing none, this is an action item. Would someone like to move approval?
I move approval. This is Linda.
DC second.
motion and a second. Call vote, please.
Rika Diaz,
Yes.
DC Doyle,
Yes.
Quinn Fioc,
Yes.
Mark Good,
Yes.
Nisha Munchi,
Yes.
James Pace,
Yes.
Linda Paceno.
Yes.
Thank you.
Next, we have item number 8, board member reports. If anybody's doing any site visits or visiting people, you better keep it to yourself.
Mark, I have a report out. So, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
So, I have been on weekly conference calls with the South County Youth Task Force, and we have been pushing really, really hard to open up another food distribution center in Gilroy, especially serving the East Gilroy residents. And thanks to Dr. Flores and Alvaro, we have a really good, solid plan. We have plenty of volunteers, but we've just been having a lot of difficulty getting Second Harvest Food Bank to cooperate and provide us the food. They seem to think that the Gilroy residents don't need it because we have four distribution centers open right now. Typically, we have 6. And the 4 that are open are really limited in terms of their service because they serve a certain group. It's not all residents that are in need. So, and that's why I sent that letter to Dr. Flores. Thank you for signing that. And then Mark, if you can sign that as well, that would be appreciated. But really, it's just in collaboration with the city to let Second Harvest Food know that Gilroy residents really need this food is very, very important. And just to let you know, so the way this food distribution works is everyone who comes gets either 50 to 100 pounds of food to take away. And it includes vegetables, dairy, bread, so all of the essentials that they need. So this is, something that the citizens of Gilroy really need, and we're really trying to push hard for it.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks for your advocacy. We really appreciate it.
Those were my exact words, Debbie. Thank you for your advocacy, Twin. That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Are there any other board reports?
I have a board report. Enrique here.
Go ahead, Mr. Diaz.
I haven't left home, been really diligent for 3 weeks now, except that first Saturday, and it was just to pick up my son from the airport, and I did not even go into the airport. I had met him out at the curbside, which I've never done, and it was really weird. Yesterday, when Luigi April was having their teacher tour around the area, and I almost didn't go because I realized I wasn't essential for that to be successful. But I did go because I thought, well, it's going to be well ventilated and aired out, and I can monitor it as well. And I have to say that it was attended properly, and spacing was well preserved throughout. I have some pictures that I'll share with you guys later on. Everybody who was in attendance was very well monitored by their own parents as well. And the spacing was evident and noticeable. And the teachers, when they drove by, did not linger at all. They didn't make it possible to be able to hover or come up to the cars or anything like that at all. It was very much like they were driving by and you wouldn't have noticed. It didn't affect traffic in any way. But I did leave for that. And while I was out on my way back, I drove by Rod Kelly because I knew it was about lunch hour, just to kind of see what the lunch thing was like. And again, I didn't go in, but I did see that people were walking in, walking by. I saw a couple girls walking in and pick up their lunch and walk back out, really orderly. Parents picking up lunches for obviously their students as well. I saw a couple of kids on bikes show up, parents driving up. It was just, everybody was they obviously knew where to go, and it was really orderly. There was no lollygagging or anything like that. So I wanted to mention those 2 things, and that's been the extent of me leaving my home for 3 weeks.
Thank you, Mr. Diaz. Are there any other board reports?
Nope.
Hearing none, are there any upcoming and or new referral agenda items?
Yeah.
Okay. Did someone have something?
Nope.
Okay. All right. Then I'll go move on to announcements and adjourn the meeting. The next regular meeting of the Board of Education will be held on Thursday, April 23rd, which is my wedding anniversary, at 7810 Arroyo Circle, Gilroy. Or maybe it won't. I don't know if that's actually accurate or not. It's going to probably be another teleconference like this. I guess technically it's being held on the school site. Is that accurate, Dr. Flores?
Ask me that again. Somebody was texting me.
Well, we say the next regular meeting is at the district office, but that's not.
No. Obviously, we have to fix that.
So this is inaccurate. It's going to be online again.
Yes.
It's going to allow for public comment again. I think our staff has done given everything else, our staff has done a great job to get this to work for the first time. So thank you, Maribel. Thank you, staff. And I imagine it'll just get better.
Yeah.
As long as we have to do it. Closed session will begin at 5:30 p.m., followed by a regular meeting at 7. The agenda will be available on the district's website by 5 p.m. on Friday, April 17th. Thank you, everybody, and this meeting is adjourned.